Disruption Networks. Easy Radio. Disruption Networks.
What's good, everybody? Good afternoon. Welcome to your Tuesday. It is EC Radio time. You can follow along on all Disruption Network social media platforms. Shout out to the sponsors. If not for the sponsors, this podcast isn't possible. Shout out to EJA Moving Services, the professional movers. When you're ready to move and relocate, hit up Eddie at ejamoving.com. Give him a call today at 315-335-0516. There's no task they can't handle. Not only can they handle every task, but they also give you free boxes. They pack up your boxes, and they bring them wherever they need to go. Tell them Uncle Z sent you, ejamoving.com. Also, a shout out to my attorney, Dave Longaretta. Has been keeping me out of trouble for so long, so many years. Thank you to Dave. If you need legal advice, give him a call at 315-735-6162. Thank you to Utica Coffee. Today, I'm drinking a mix of the blueberry and the Utica roast, I think. And then George got hooked up with some Guatemalan roast. Look at that, dude. That's going to jack you up.
I went to the Vanna White School of Hand Modeling.
You're very good at it. Wait till you drink that and all that chest hair starts growing.
I'm very, very psyched.
Also, shout out to Utica Coffee, Saranac Brewery, and my good friend Matt Grabsky over at Joey's at 307. George, you want a good meal? Next time you come to Utica, I got to bring you to Joey's at 307.
Okay. Grimaldi's is closing.
Yeah, did you see the article?
Crushed.
Today? Yeah.
I'm crushed.
Oh, man, legendary Joey.
I know.
George Rossi joining me today. Thank you so much for taking the time today, man.
Yeah, I'm honored.
Super cool that you came here. The first time you ever came on my radar, I think it was like 1996 with the Styleens. We used to go hang out at Styleens a lot. You guys had a residency like every Friday night.
Saturday.
Oh, Saturday night.
Every Saturday, yeah.
See, it was my blackout years, George.
Yeah, mine too.
That outfit was going for how long now?
Well, we were talking before we started about the Boogeyman.
Yes.
And when the Boogeyman finally imploded, I was 30 years old, and my wife had left me, and I had nothing to show for 10 years of work. And I went, you know what? I'm going to start my own band, and I'm going to do it my own way, and I'm going to just start a little vanity label and start a band and just fuck it. Just do my shit instead of doing everybody else's shit and getting nothing for it.
DIY, right?
Yeah. It was kind of, honestly, I was like looking at Ana DeFranco back then and saw what she was doing with Righteous Babe out of Buffalo. She had just started. And I was like, well, see, honestly, this sort of segues into our previous conversation, looking at legitimate record deals and seeing how they were structured and going like, okay, on one hand, you could have a legitimate record deal where they basically loan you money to make a record. You have to pay it back. It's called a recoupable advance. And you're getting 25 cents per copy sold. The record wholesales for back then, it was a disc wholesale for $7.25, and they sold it for $15 out of retail. So to recoup the money that they lend you to make a record, you have to sell literally millions of records to even pay them back before you start making money. And yeah, you make money off of the merchandising or touring or whatever. It's sort of the same thing. Or you could own the label and you could make all $7.25. You're paying for things to get to that point, but it's certainly much more than your little 25 cent per record. And you don't have to sell as many. So if you can resolve the ego issues of I'll never be on MTV and I'll never sell a million records and but I'll make just as much money and I'll still do my own thing and I'll control it.
Right. not have tons of hands in your pocket.
Well, or even artistically, you know, like I won't have Mike Ross or Matt Dyke going like, that lead vocal needs to have more. What do they call it? More, with that thing where that effect that you delay. Yeah, you doubly, or the Spinal Tap joke. That's what it was like dealing with these fuckers, and it's like, really? I'd rather just make my own records and control them and control my own art and control the way it looks and control the way it's conceived. And if someone says, I don't have to deal with somebody who says, I don't like keyboard players, really? Fuck you. I'm the keyboard player. So that's kind of cool. That was what attracted me to the Hungarians. And so that's how that started. So really, well, I don't know, like maybe 91. And then it lasted until 90. In that form, lasted until about 98.
So you're pretty much basically selling albums out of your trunk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At first, I mean, and honestly, that wasn't even part. That was part of like the long range plan. The first thing is that I had to put a band together, and I had to learn how to front a band, and all of that was like, I mean, I hate to admit it now, but I'm pretty good at like seeing the chess moves, 40 moves down the board, and if you can do that, that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody has to know what those 40 moves are. You do it a little chunk at a time. So really, the way that the Shuffling Hungarian started was Tom Kenny, the voice of SpongeBob, who's from Syracuse, New York, Tomcat Kenny. He wasn't the voice of SpongeBob back then, but he was doing voiceover work in L.A. and doing some cartoon work, and he was acting. He was trying to have a comedy career at that point. And Bobcat Goldthwait had exploded with all those Police Academy movies. They're all coming up at the same time, but Bob had the career. Everybody else was sort of following behind him, all his buds, his crew, his squad.
He had a squad?
Yeah, well, this squad was Bobcat, Tomcat Kenny, Bearcat.
Oh, so they were all cats.
Barry Crimmins, right,
Sounds like a kennel.
Right, so all these guys were coming up the same, but Bob hit first with his crazy thing that he did in the Police Academy. So Tom was sort of out in L.A., and he would come back home, and he used to front rock bands back in the 80s. He was in a band called the Tearjerkers. So he contacted friends of mine, and he said, I want to do a show for Thanksgiving because I'm coming home for Thanksgiving. Would you want to do a show? And so we did a show, and it was called Tom Kenny and the Pushballs. And it was me, because the fireman game, right? Tomcat Kenny and the Pushballs. And we did a show down at Daly's in downtown Syracuse, and it was guys from the Flash Cubes, Gary Frenay, Artie Lennon, me, Frank DeFonda was playing drums. And we did the show. It was hysterical. And Tom Kenny is just fucking hysterical. And he's also a pretty good vocalist, great front man. But it was absolute lunacy, and the joint was packed. Everybody had a great time. That was probably late 80s Boogeymen era.
Okay.
Maybe even before the Boogeymen. And so the Boogeymen imploded, and I got a call from Tom. And he says, I'm coming back. And I got nothing. I'm like ready to put a gun in my mouth and take myself out. I got nothing. Literally, my wife left me, no band, no money. I'm living in a shithole apartment. I'm driving a $500 Ford LTD, $500 car that I had to start. I have to get under the car and hit the starter with a rock. Pressure treated lumbar bumper. I mean, I'm at low ebb. And he calls me and he says, do you want to do the Pushballs? I'm going to call Gary and Artie, and we're going to do it again. And I don't know what possessed me. I said, Tom, because he knew I was that I knew what he was about musically, what he wanted to do. He wanted to do this crunchy 50s rock and roll R&B. Gary and Artie aren't really those guys. They're power pop guys, He wanted to do this down and dirty thing, with a horn section and everything. And I said, all right, look, I'll put it together, but I call the personnel. I hire them. And he said, okay. And so I put together the Shuffling Hungarians because under the guise of we're going to do this one-off show for Tom Kenny, but I knew all along what I was doing. I wanted to get the best band in Syracuse. But all those guys were in bands that were, back then they were working bands that worked 5-6 nights a week. And they were all in bands, like in blues bands that worked all the time. But I wanted to get those guys, so I went after Mark Tifo and Paul Arand, who were in the King Snakes and then were in Built for Comfort. And, these are the cream of the recording crop of Syracuse for blues-based music. I got them, and then I got Pauly Serra on sax and Frankie Grosso on sax. Actually got Tim Harrington to play guitar. And I put together the prototype of what the Shuffling Hungarians were going to be. So we did the show with Tom Kenny. It was great. We did it at the Zodiac, which was Dylene's before it was Zodiac. They had, changed the name. And it was sold out. There was like 2,000 people. The courtyard was open. It was like, the Battle of the Bulge was crazy. Everybody had a great time. And everybody invested a lot of work in it because they knew that it was going to sell out and it was going to be important. And after it was over, I went to the guys in the band, the core guys in the band, the bass player and the drummer, basically. And I said, "Do you think maybe you'd be interested in continuing this?" They were like, "Well, that's an idea. Who's going to front the band?" And I said, "Well, I am."
They start laughing at you.
I'm laughing at myself that I was just such a fucking, manipulative jackass, but I absolutely manipulated the situation to have this great band. And so we did Wednesdays at the Zodiac after party in the Plaza, and I was horrible. I sucked so bad. And these guys are looking at me, and God bless them, they stood by me. But we did these, series of Wednesdays. I think we did like 4 of them, and it was just hideous. And and I had to go back to the drawing board. And then we got every Wednesday night at the Dinosaur Barbecue, and that's how it started. And that's how it became Little Georgie and the Shuffling Hungarians.
So when you guys started cutting your teeth.
I started coming. These guys were pros, man.
They were already.
These guys were fucking great at what they did. Mm-hmm. But it was all that Tom Kenny material. It was all that like almost novelty 50s R&B, Richard Berry, Get Out of the Car, and, the guy that wrote Louie, just novelty tunes, big Bull Moose Jackson, big 10-inch, and all, or ribald R&B songs, or, that was the material, how it started. And then I started to choose the material and craft the material, and it was all cover material. That's why, we'll get into that, I'm sure, cover bands versus original material, but
it's still a conversation.
It's still a conversation, I guess. But, that's how you start. And I wanted everybody to learn how to play this music that I was studying, which was New Orleans piano music. So the Shuffling Hungarians really became like the history of American piano rock. And that started in New Orleans and down south, and so we just naturally gravitated toward that material, and it was different material than what those guys were used to playing, because they were like blues guys, Chicago blues, straight up, straight ahead, blues purists thing, and I'm saying, let's play Professor Longhair tunes, and it was related enough and it was a challenge enough for them to go, oh yeah, we're going to do that. So that's how the band started, and that's how we started to build that crowd. We called it the Shuffling Hungarians, which is code for musos that actually know what that means in New Orleans, and the 5 people in Syracuse, and they were there every Wednesday night because it was the name of one of Professor Longhair's early bands, and so they knew what they were going to get, and that's how we built the audience. And then, of course, there was the theatrical aspect of the whole.
For sure, it was very high energy.
Well, it was high energy, and also in the Dinosaur, it was the theater of the absurd. Yeah. I mean, it was.
It must have been stuffed in there too.
Well, we developed it so so that it was very stuffed, but there was definitely a lot of times it was like people were there not only for the music, but to see what the fuck was going to come out of my mouth at any given time, because I was working out some issues. I was definitely creating a theatrical construct that was autobiographical. And the fact that I was, had some shit going on in my life that I had to work through. So I created this character, this thing. I don't know what you would call him.
Little Georgie?
Yeah, I mean, he was, I was designing a suit of clothes I thought that I could wear for a long period of time. It turns out that I really was uncomfortable in it, and I felt it was kind of constraining. But at the time, I was thinking, like, well, I can invent this character, and I can walk in this character, and I can work out all my fucking shit, and I can work it out in front of people, and it's going to be entertaining, but it's also going to be, a fucking train wreck. and people are going to, wanna come see it. Yeah, and nobody really understood it. Like even the guys in the band, you can't say, like they're, I'm drunk and I'm saying shit about my, whatever, but all through the context of the character of, but of what was going on in my life. I think back to those days because I often wonder, like, what's my motivation now? Because, I don't have those self-esteem issues that I had. I mean, the Shuffling Hungarians was a big, mangled ball of fiery human wreckage. That's what it was, me presenting that as a theatrical entertainment. I thought, well, this is the best way of working through all that stuff. But definitely I had self-esteem issues that, I needed to, in an exhibition sort of way, get in front of people and say, see, I'm not embarrassed by what's happening in my life. And I'm not, I'm going to turn this into an entertainment. All this bullshit, my ex-wife, sucking every cock in town. I'm going to make art out of it.
What's her name? No, I'm kidding.
I'm going to make art out of it. And I'm going to, and she's, throwing me off to, like, be with, like, the flavor of the month rock star in town. Okay. I'll show you who the fucking rock star is. It's going to take me a while. But, there was a lot of revenge factor going on in that thing, too. It was just mentally unhealthy thing.
Were you drinking and boozing a lot? Are you drugging?
Not a lot at first, because to pull that thing off, you had to have all your faculties about you.
Copy that.
A little bit, on stage, but as far as, building a label and building an organization and getting ready to sell a record and getting ready to market a record and managing a, back then it was pre-internet, it was, no one had email. You did direct mail.
Yeah.
So we were doing, it right before the first record came out, I was funding out of what my boogeyman money I had left. I was funding a mailing list that had 20,000 people.
Wow. It's a lot of stamps.
That's a lot of bulk mail. It's bulk mail, but you still got to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, thousands of dollars a month were going out the door, and the band was playing every Wednesday night at the Dinosaur Barbecue for $400. But I knew where I was going.
Mm-hmm.
I knew where I was going. So, when we finally released the first record, that weekend, we sold 10,000 copies of that record out of one store in the Carousel Mall in Syracuse.
Wow.
10,000 records.
It's amazing.
And well, yeah, but no one thought I could. Even the people in the band were like, they didn't know what I was doing, like where I was going.
They think you were nuts?
They thought, yeah. But as long as they didn't have to pay for anything, they were fine. So, like, every once in a while, because you want it to be a band. So every once in a while, like, like you're putting a record out. It costs money, right? Like, we got to manufacture records. Well, we need a PA. We need a truck. We need to do gigs. And it's like, well, guys, we need to buy a PA. And they look you right in the eye and they go, we ain't fucking paying for that shit. Mm-hmm. Fuck you, man. This is your fucking circus. We have another band that we're in. We're only doing every Wednesday night. Oh, all right. Well, we're making a record. We need to pay for the art for the record. Well, fuck you. It's your band, not my fucking thing. Okay. So, you're paying an artist that, does covers for the Boston Globe magazine, and she ain't cheap. Back then when you don't have any money. So you're borrowing money left and right, or you're working with Bob Acquaviva, who's actually investing in your band by specking you a record, specking you recording time. A lot of people were throwing down that weren't in the band, but they saw it. Bob saw it. Mm-hmm. They didn't. And so, you sell that amount of records, and then they see the money, and they go,
of course.
Where's my money? Yeah. And it's like, it's going to the guy that invested the recording time and the guy that lent me the money to pay for the manufacturing and the artwork and the, and the mailing list. And there were investors that made that thing happen. So.
But you had a product and you believed in it. Yeah. And you took the bull by the horns and you sold it.
If you believe in yourself, it's easy to sell.
Right.
If you think, wait a minute, I got something here, I can sell it. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're working for somebody else and you're like trying to sell a widget. You're selling you. Mm-hmm. That's what gets you up and makes you work for 24 hours a day. It was a lot of work, man.
You're being as old school as you are. Was it easy for you to adapt to technology, especially today's day and age with the live streaming and all that?
Well, I mean, that's an interesting question. No, it's not easy for me anymore.
No?
But, I mean, back then, we were ahead of the curve. We were, back then, I managed that band on I hate to say it, but, a 486 Dell computer. That was the height of computing power, managing that 20,000 entry, database, managing that database. I was into database management. Mm-hmm. I was into the fact that a computer could make you look like there was 40 people doing stuff when really there was only one guy doing it. I embraced technology back then. The Shuffling Hungarians were one of, this is fact. The Shuffling Hungarians was one of 200 bands worldwide that had a website.
And what year is this? 96, 97?
Oh, no. This had
before that?
This had to be like 93.
93, 94, right in the beginning of the internet.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
We were one of the first bands in the world. In other words, 200, we were one of the first bands in the world to have a website. We were pirating a server space off a server from the University of San Francisco. Somebody said, we're doing these things as they're called websites, and, got the record and said, you do want a website, I'll build one for you, and I'll pirate some space for it off the University of San Francisco, California, USC server. So that was our website. So our web address was like this fucking long. and it was in ads, but we were buying print ads in magazines. That's how you sold shit back then. So we were really kind of ahead of the curve of technology and right on the edge of it, and then Napster happened. Uh-huh. And I was kind of like out of the game. I sort of was transitioning out of owning a label. At that point, I had moved to New Orleans, and I wanted to, do some other things that I had missed, which was, not being an administrator of a record label, but to, make records. Mm-hmm. And play.
Mm-hmm.
And not have to worry about, 20 people and managing 20 people. Just show up and play, or show up and produce, or show up,
It's a lot to handle. It's a lot to manage, too, especially when you got a big band like that.
Yeah, and honestly, I knew my own limitations. I told those, 2 years before I went to New Orleans, I said, if this continues the way that it goes, and I'm the sole proprietor of this stuff, we have a finite shelf life here to this thing. And you may want to, take care of yourself by seeing what your next move is going to be. And they said, okay. And then they didn't do anything. Or maybe they did. I don't know. But, I mean, I knew I wasn't long for the 315. I knew I wanted to get out.
Yeah. You hit a wall, maybe?
The wall. I had an epiphany.
You got sucked in the Venus flytrap of the 315.
I love the 315.
Me too.
I love the. You know what I love about the 315? A certain segment of the populace allows you to aspire. They don't knock you down. They're not crabs in a bucket.
Mm-hmm.
If you prove that you want to aspire, not everybody, but enough people recognize, you know what? If we lift that up, that lifts us up. You know, it's like when everybody celebrates the basketball team when they have a good season. Mm-hmm. Everybody all of a sudden is, a fan of Jim Boeheim, and they love Jim Boeheim, and it lifts the community up, and it lifts the spirit up, and they know that it's a smart idea to get behind it and not to say, be an asshole about fucking sports. Or, or like, I don't watch the fucking Orangemen. Fucking fuck you.
Yeah. Who you kidding?
Right. Well, even if you don't, you get behind the fucking initiative because the world is looking at the 315. Or a big part of it is looking at the 3, and you know it. So shut the fuck up. Jim Boeheim, God bless you, Jim Boeheim. How lucky are we that we've had that guy for as long as we've had it,
right? Doing
what he does. And I don't give a shit if you don't like the 3-2 zone. Fuck you. You know what I mean? Look. Or he doesn't know what he's doing anymore. Really? Look what he did last year with nothing.
I agree.
Shut up.
I agree.
You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But Jim, within the construct of what he does, he aspires to greatness. He wants to get into that tournament, and he wants to move to and he wants to win ball games, and he wants to be a great coach. Mm-hmm. He aspires, and people get behind him. So there's always that in the 315. And even though it's a prove it to me town, once you prove it, they'll get behind you. Now, sometimes in other towns, you can prove it, and you'll have to continue to prove it, and they'll still fucking drag you down. I've never really felt that way about Syracuse. I've never really felt that way about Utica. I've always felt that there's always been that little ray of rah-rahism, like, really deliver us, George. It says live from Stylene's Syracuse, New York for a reason. A lot of people would say, well, that's kind of career suicide doing that. And you know what? I didn't have a problem with it.
Yeah.
I'm proud of where I'm from.
You born and raised in Syracuse?
315, yeah.
Yeah.
My parents were from Auburn.
Auburn.
I lived in Skaneateles most of my young life.
Yeah.
I grew up there. And then when I ran away from home when I was 16 and lived in Syracuse pretty much ever since.
You keep my percentage of Italian guests at a high level right now.
Oh,
I'm lingering right around 96% Italian guests.
I'm 100%, man. On both sides of my family tree, I'm 100%.
Right on. Yeah. We're surrounded by the Italians here in Utica. And I'm 3/4.
I know that there's shit about me that you don't know.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so
come on, I want dirt.
So if you want to go into Italian land, you do realize that my family is PNR macaroni.
Oh, wow.
My grandmother was a Persino. My grandfather was a Rossi. My father is Rossi. I have pasta running through my veins.
Wow, I did not know that.
I worked in the factory when I was a teenager. I was, I know how to, when everybody says, wow, baking bread is a newly acquired skill. Like, are you fucking kidding me, man? I eat raw pasta off the assembly line when I was fucking 2 years old. Will you shut up?
You making gnocchis?
No, I'm in a macaroni factory. It's on an assembly line coming out of a high pressure press with a blade swinging around like this out of a bronze die, and it hits the fucking conveyor belt, and I'm like this when I'm 2 years old. Sunday we would go to the pasta factory after church to see if everything was running right. My father ran that factory, for as long as I can remember until he sold it, and he worked 10-hour, 12-hour days.
Wow.
6 days a week. He took a half day on Saturday, and then he took a half day on Sunday to go to church. And that was it. And then he went right back to work.
Your old man worked his ass off.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Still alive. He's 95 years old.
Really?
But, yeah, he worked his... Yeah. Believe me, working in the pasta factory when you're the boss's son, you don't get the cush job. You get the shittiest job in the factory because you're the boss's son.
And you take a couple scoffs here and there, right?
You know what my gig was for 3 summers in a row? Okay, so on the second floor they have the dryers, and they old school. So all the gear in that factory was like from the fucking teens and 20s, and they would import machinists from Italy to keep the shit running. Right, but all that the reason why people love B&R macaroni in Utica and Syracuse is because it was all like the real deal shit that they made in Italy. It was all made on the same gear by the same guys.
Wow.
So the dryers went the length of the factory. So they're mixing the dough. The dough mixers are on one end of the factory. The presses are all there. They press it through. They cut it through. And then the dryers, then they move through the dryers. And specifically spaghetti or long cuts are draped over a dowel. And then that dowel is on a chain link drive. And it goes through the length of the factory. And it takes 24 hours for that pasta to go to the other end of the factory where it is completely dry. And then they cut the loops off, and they cut that in half. It's 24 inches long on each side, and they cut that in half. They have 4 12-inch pieces that go in a 12-inch box. It goes down a chute, and they pack it. That dowel drops down to the bottom of the dryer and then takes 24 hours to move back to the other end of the factory to get reloaded with spaghetti. If those dowels get jammed up in that chain link drive at any point in the process, the whole fucking thing stops, and they can't afford to stop. The factory runs 24/7. So here's my job. I'm on a dolly on my back underneath a dryer that's at 220 degrees. So it's low, but not that low. Middle of summer, no air conditioning, nothing but Durham wheat dust flying, And so you're sweating. And within minutes, you have bread baked on any exposed piece of skin you have. It's bread. You're en croûte. You're constantly peeling bread off of your body and off of your face. And I'm on my back, scanning for those dowels if there's a jam. So I'm scooting like a little fucking beetle on my back, right? Going, it's a city block, the length of the factory. It's not a little factory,
right?
And that's what I did for. And of course, my father had to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning because he had to be the first one there and the last one to leave. And so I was there from maybe 5:30 in the morning till 8 o'clock at night. Summer, age 13, 14, and 15. That was how I spent my summers. But you know what? I made a lot of money, but it was the shittiest job. But I don't know how much what minimum wage was back then, but I think it was like $2 and something cents an hour. That's how I became a musician. I bought my first electric piano. I worked for it. My father didn't take any shit. They had money, but they made me fucking work.
That's good.
Everything you did, I always had a job. Mm-hmm. Paper route, washing dishes, bar back, cleaning up. I cleaned under the stone in school years because I couldn't work in the factory. I would clean under the stone, which was the big rock bar in Skinny Atlas, and they had these great, messy rock shows every Sunday, Tuesday, and off night rock shows, and I cleaned the bar and hung out with the bands. They rehearsed there during the day.
Was that your inspiration to be a musician? Like hanging out the stone? Or?
Pretty well, you know what? Yeah, I was all part of it. I think really my inspiration was Skinny Atlas was like a weird town. There was a lot of cool shit going on in Skinny Atlas in the 60s. And, it was the birthplace of Juke and Bone and Joe Whiting and the Dean Brothers primarily. So I lived on a little road called Gale Road, and I can remember being a real little kid, like 5 years old, and playing flashlight tag with my older brother and sister. And the Dean Brothers lived at the top of the road, across the street, across from Route 41. And so did Holly Gregg. They were all in the Dean Brothers. Or they weren't the Dean Brothers back then. They were like the Ridgewoods, or the Gay Blades. I don't know. It's the 60s, right?
Blades.
That was one of their names. Brandywine was another one of these things. They diverged, but in the Ridgewoods, I think it was the Deans and Joe Whiting, and they all lived in a cluster right up there at the top of my street, and they would practice in the Dean brothers' garage in summertime. And I heard the music, you know, 5, 6, and I very inadvisedly and totally against the Rossi rules would go up to the top of the road and cross Route 41. There was a lot of truck traffic, but I would cross it, and they would be playing in the garage, and they were doing they playing Beatles songs. You know, it was the Beatles. It was like, you know, post 1964, so we're talking about 1965, like that summer when everybody wanted to get an electric guitar, learn how to play, and be in the Beatles. So they're playing Beatles songs and, you know, soul songs, whatever, you know. But that's like you know, you're listening to this music, and this is the thing, man. It's always been about the fucking pussy. Even at 5, I fucking knew. And so they just had all these fucking girls in the driveway, all over the yard, in the front yard, all around the garage. And they're wearing mini skirts and, you know, white patent leather go-go boots. And they smelled great. And I'm little, and I'm looking up at these women, and they're just gorgeous. And they're gaga over these guys, you know, right? And while that's going on, they're giving me, you know, because they're hiding beer in the bushes, and they're giving me sips of their beers. And isn't he a cute little kid? And I'm getting loaded. And then I would be loaded and, you know, 5, 6 years old, and waddle down back to my house and pass out. That's why I wanted to be a musician. Was trim and booze and drugs and great. Who wouldn't want to do that for the rest of your life? So I knew that when I was 5, I wanted to do that. And they were, you know, and quite frankly, there was, as I was growing up back in the 60s and early 70s, there was a respect for a musician, at least in Skaneateles. You know, they were much beloved, the Deans, Joe Whiting, Mark Doyle. They were beloved.
Still.
They were beloved, but, you know, I'm telling you.
Back then it was more.
They were beloved by the community. And so, you know, in 1972, I guess, or whatever, you're 12, and you're going to see Juke and Bone at the Allen Arena, the freshly built, you know, skating rink. And, oh, my God, you know, you're Mark Doyle. And, oh, my God, you know, like, who wouldn't want to do that? So even though I didn't play, you wanted to be part of it somehow. So, yeah, I mean, I wanted to clean under the stone because I wanted to be around Larry Arlotta. I wanted to be around Rick Kua. I wanted to be around Bob Halligan. At that point, I was, like, you know, dabbling with playing the saxophone, I think. And I wanted to be around those guys because they were just fucking cool, you know. You know, Larry Arlotta, God bless him, you know.
When'd you pick up piano?
Oh, you really wanted to hear this story?
Of course.
All right. So, I took piano lessons when I was a little kid and whatever, and never practiced, and it was a waste of time and a waste of money, and so I never really was interested in doing it. But I was in 7th grade, and I was in school band. I was a band nerd, and I was playing saxophone. And but we had a piano in the house, but I never played it. I played saxophone. And I was pretty good at it, you know, like, you know, being a band guy. It wasn't, you know, soloing or, you know.
Follow along.
But two factors. One, my sister had a really cool boyfriend that played guitar in high school. She was older. And he was really cool. Bobby Varno. Hi, Bobby. He's a Utica boy.
Oh, yeah?
Now. And Bobby played guitar, and he had impeccable musical taste. And so he was sort of indoctrinating my sister into, like, what she should be listening to. So by osmosis, I was sort of getting it too. So I, you know, was realizing that being a fan of music sort of like gave you a cool factor. So if you knew who was on what record and who produced what record and who, you know, it's that it's that diner thing, that what was the actor's name? Daniel in Diner, don't touch my records, that kind of thing. So I was into records, and I was into studying music and, musical family trees. Eric Clapton played with John Mayall, and then he played with Cream, and then he played with Blind Faith, and then he played with Delaney and Bonnie, and that begat Leon Russell, and I knew all that shit. But I was a saxophone player, so I knew about Bobby Keys. That's the setup. So every lunch period, guys that were a year older than me, and one of them was the brother of my sister's boyfriend, but he was only a year older. But that's miles away back then. They're like older cats. They had a rock band, trio, bass, guitar, drums, and they would play in the music room every lunch period. They were in 8th grade. I was in 7th grade, and so I would go and watch them play. And again, the trim, fucking girls were just, drool coming out of their mouth and transfixed by, and, they weren't that good. But, the girls were absolutely transfixed by what these guys were doing, and they were kind of good looking. And I was thinking, like, I'm not going to be a sports guy. I'm not going to be a football hero. I'm not going to be a popular guy. I'm fucking weird. I'm a nerd. I'm weird. I'm crazy. I knew I was different, and I knew that I was never going to fit in, and I had to find some way of fitting in, and I saw it, that it was this. And so I went up to my sister's boyfriend's brother, who was the titular leader of the band, Jimmy Varno, and I said, hey, and they were playing like a Stones tune, Brown Sugar. I said, hey, I know the sax part to that. Lying through my teeth. Lying. I know the sax part to that. Yeah, right. And I'm a year younger. Get the fuck out of here. So for months, they would do a song, and if there was a sax part in the song, I would say, hey, I know how to play that. Hey, get the fuck out of here. So one day they're playing Let It Rain, Eric Clapton. She has a very unique piano introduction that was played by Leon Russell. And, of course, I'm a student of these records. And so they're playing Let It Rain. None of these girls, they don't know that fucking Let It Rain from a hole in their head. They don't know that song, But I know that this guy is pulling records from his brother and taking guitar lessons from his brother, and his brother's teaching him this stuff, and I know the same shit. So I go, hey, I can play that piano part to Let It Rain. A very unique piano part. And his eyes lit up. He goes, really? Oh, yeah. He goes, well, sit down, because there's a piano right there. And I'm lying. I don't know how to play a fucking lick of piano. And I go, well, I got to go. I'm late for class, but I'll be back tomorrow. He goes, okay. He knows I'm full of shit, right? So now it's on. So I skip school. I grab my little portable record player that goes down to 16.5, right? And I put it next to and I grabbed the Eric Clapton Orange record, his first solo record, and I put it down, and I put it on 16, and it plays, knocks it down an octave, but, and I figure out 2 fingers, and I'm there all afternoon, all through dinner, all night long. My parents, George, shut the fuck up, you're driving us fucking nuts. I'm just trying to learn that one little lick. That's it. Right? Because it happens a couple times in the song. And I'm smart enough to know where it happens and how it happens. I stop. And then I pretend to go to school the next day. I wait for my mother to go to work. My father's long gone. But I wait for my mother to go. Driveway's clear. I'm up in the field with binoculars watching her drive up the street. I go back down home. I practice all morning long. And I leave just in time to make lunch hour at the music room. And I come in, and he goes, oh, you showed up. Smart, big cock of the walk. I go, yeah. He goes, well, all right, sit down. Let's do it. I go, okay. And I go, count me in. He goes, okay. He goes, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I go, and he goes, da, 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 da. And there's this little, like this little 16th note chromatic lick. And I had it figured out with 2 fingers. And I go, and I play it. And they fucking whip around. And they go, oh my God, he can fucking play it. That's all I did. I didn't play a chord. I didn't play any music. I didn't play nothing except that lick. And at the end of the song, he says, dude, do you want to be in our band? And I said, yeah, I'd love to be in the band. He says, all right, well, we rehearse in school and blah, blah, blah. And okay, well, here's my phone number and, tell me what to listen to. And I don't know how to play. I go home. I tell my parents I'm in a band and I'm taking my macaroni factory money and we're going to Gerber Music and I'm buying a fucking piano. And they went, okay, hop in the car. And we hop in the car. Here's the 40 moves ahead guy. Go to Gerber Music. I don't know. I think it was Mickey McMiniman sold me the piano. This big fucking Fender Rhodes, 88 stage piano. Well, you're going to need an amp. I had enough money for the piano, but not the amp. And I go, can you lend me the money, Dad? He goes, yeah. He goes, as long as you're going to pull weekends at the factory. Okay. So we get this big acoustic amp and the piano. And then right before we walk out the door, I see a PA, acoustic, columns, and little 6-channel powered mixer with like 1 VU meter on it, and a couple knobs. I go, how much is that? I say to Mickey McMiniman, and he says this. And I go, Dad? He goes, what do you need that for? I go, I think I'm going to need it. He goes, all right, well, it's your dime. I go, okay. So my dad fronted me the money for an amp and a PA.
Wow.
And a PA. So when these guys called to rehearse, I said, we're going to rehearse in my basement at my house. And they come in. This is the Bill Wyman School of Rock and Roll. And they come in and they see that I've got a fucking PA. They go, you're in. I didn't know how to play. No, didn't matter. I had the fucking PA because they didn't have one. I had one. And I knew that if I had the PA, that they would never kick me out of the band because I had the PA. That's how I started. So it was all about pussy.
Moral story.
I didn't have some sort of like natural inclination toward music or anything. It was all about
You're motivated by women.
I wanted pussy, and it worked out. It definitely was the right thing for me to do. I wasn't going to get it any other way in my misspent youth. So,
classic case of faking it till you make it, huh?
well, honestly, I music came to me late. It was always about the lifestyle.
Uh-huh.
It was never about the music. I mean, I knew, I learned enough to, get by. But just enough. I mean, I wanted to be a rocker. And yeah, I mean, I studied it in my own way. I mean, but really, like the guitar player was like, here's an E chord. Here are the notes of the E chord. I plunk out the notes of an E chord on the piano and I go, oh, that's how you make an E chord. And that would be my E chord until I figured out that you could make other E chords. I did not take like traditional theory or piano lessons or jazz lessons or, I was all just figuring it out and then doing it by ear.
Did you get into theory later on in life?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I got serious about it much later on when the pussy was not the main motivating factor.
Right.
But, yeah, but when I was 18, 19, 20, and I was, in my first throughway rock and roll band with a truck and a road crew and a light show and, I mean, I knew how to play, but it was never about the playing. It was about the drugs and the pussy. The drugs, and I love drugs. I've missed them so. I just love drugs, and I love pussy. So it was really about that. And then when I met my future ex-wife, and I realized like it can't be about the pussy anymore.
Right.
It's got to be about something else. Well, what does it got to be? Well, maybe it should be about the music. And that's when I really got serious about really studying music. I had always sort of studied it, but that's when I supplanted the love of pussy with the love of music. And that was probably about 25 5 or 6.
One started out way the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it just was unsustainable. If I was going to be in a committed monogamous relationship, it couldn't be about getting laid anymore. I mean, look, it was the 80s,
Right.
and it was pre-AIDS. So 70s and 80s, that was my sexual awakening time, and it was like Satyricon. It was crazy. Not a lot of people realize, that there was a point where you really didn't have to practice safe sex at all, and didn't. Sex wasn't going to kill you until the 80s, but in the 70s, it was
free for all.
It was a free for all, a cocaine-soaked free for all. So yeah, that's what happened.
And now, George, you're doing this bread loop thing. Talk a little bit about that too. As Phil Scalise is saying, George, did you bring me my loaf of bread?
Oh, Phil, man, I'm sorry. I should. It wasn't a bake day today. It was a dough day today, but I should have brought something for Phil.
This is something you started during the pandemic, correct?
Yeah. Oh, actually, prior to. It's kind of
prior.
Yeah, my significant other, who we've been together for about 8 years now, 9 years.
Mm-hmm.
She has a habit of starting hobbies that she doesn't have time for. So the genesis of this was maybe November of 2019, where actually we were starting to hear that something was going on in China, but no one was paying attention. Mm-hmm. So, like November, October, she came to me and she said, and this is pattern. This is not anything new. But the pattern is, I'm thinking about taking up this hobby. And this particular hobby was I'm thinking about learning how to make sourdough bread. And I, a supportive partner, always say, oh, that's great. Yeah, honey, you should learn how to make sourdough bread. So then what happens in the cycle is then she gears up. So she's, online looking at stuff to buy. And so she buys everything you need to bake any bread-related good. So it's not just, and it all comes flowing in, and I have to manage the UPS guy and the FedEx guy, and half of my household chores is breaking down boxes and finding places to put all this shit. Mm-hmm. So, there in comes the French clay baker and the French clay baguette baker and the French clay cloche and the Danish dough whisk and the plastic buckets and the various flours, specialty flours, and artisan bread salt, and yeasts, and it's all flowing in and it's a lot of shit.
Yeah, sounds like
right. And so and I don't know anything about making sourdough bread. I mean, I don't. And so it all comes in, and then she starts to actually investigate what it takes to make sourdough bread, which is incredible time commitment and laborious and scheduled thing. And she says, and it's all pattern, maybe you should learn how to make it, and then you can teach me, and it'll be a shortcut for me because I don't have the time. She works really hard. She really doesn't have the time for any of these hobbies that she takes up. And it's the pattern, and I love her, and so I laugh. And I said, all right, sure, I'll learn how to make sourdough. So now my life is dedicated toward YouTube videos and books and going to the library, taking out books in the library and learning everything that I need to know to make artisanal breads. And it's not easy, and I don't know shit about it, and I got to learn how to do it. So I do. So now, something about baking bread really speaks to my anal retentive, obsessive compulsive, detail oriented. This is why I'm good at making records. This is why I'm good at making bands. Making bands is because I don't let anything fucking slide. And so I'm, So it's very compelling. My OCD is just totally, I'm tweaked. I love this mad scientist shit in the fucking kitchen, and Milton the monster. Ooh, just a drop of tenderness. Oops, too much. Growing shit and growing starter and maintaining starter and figuring out all the different ratios and figuring how to consistently make a beautiful loaf of bread. It's taken me a while. And there's a lot of mistakes. And also, part of consistency is just scheduling and cranking it out. Can I crank it out? Can I crank it out consistently? So all of a sudden, there's a lot of bread. You can't eat it all. So what you give it to mom, you give it to dad, you give it to your mother-in-law, you give it to your neighbor, you give it to your friend, you give it to, you're just giving it away because you can't eat it all and it's cheap. It's time. That's what it is.
Yeah.
It's just fucking time. That's what you're really giving away. But I perfect my recipe for the perfect loaf of sourdough bread. And it's, quite frankly, Z, it's fucking great bread. I don't fuck around, if I'm going to dedicate myself to something.
Mark Mackery is saying, as someone who has been on the receiving end of the bread loop, George's bread is righteous.
It's fucking great bread.
Shout out to Mark Mackery, by the way.
Thank you, Mittens. How you doing, brother?
Mittens, that's his nickname?
That's mine.
You guys got a
for
pet name for each other?
Yeah, Mittens McCree. And also that was generated in Utica, by the way, that nickname. And that's how I met Mark, was through Utica.
Yeah.
So anyway, part of the pattern here is, as you're giving away the bread or whatever, is that it started to become something, and it was organic. It wasn't preconceived. It was just organic. I was just giving it away, give it to friends, and then when COVID sort of lightened up in the spring last year, just a little, where people were like, okay, we can have human contact again. It seems like things are, social distancing worked, masked worked. I decided, I'd like to commemorate, I'd like the bread to mean something because it does take so much time to make. Each loaf of bread, I counted it one time, each loaf of bread takes 70 hours to make.
What?
70 hours. Between feeding the starter, gestating the dough and curing the dough to just right, to baking, to cooling. It's a 70 to 75 hour process from beginning to end. And you are scheduled. You have to start the starter here. You have to refeed it here. You have to make the dough at 5 in the morning. You have to stretch and fold the dough. Then you have to store the dough in the fridge. Then you have to let it cure for 48 hours. And you're absolutely committed after that 48 hours to bake that bread. You're scheduled. It's like that thing, that military. That's what, in COVID, because you couldn't play music, nobody wanted to be in the same room with you. I'm not a gigging musician, but I was working on a record. I couldn't get anybody to go into a recording studio with me because they were scared. So that regimentation was very attractive to me. And so then I've got all this bread to give away, and I said, well, it's a lot of time. I'd like to commemorate giving the bread away. And I'd also like to choose who I give the bread to sort of, have it mean something. Not just like give it to my dad. I love my dad, and, but he, doesn't like sourdough bread, whatever. Or, he can't eat all of it. Your mother-in-law can't eat all of it, So I'd like it to mean something. I'd like to give it, and so we're all on Facebook. We're all on social networking. We're all on Twitter. And you can see how people are conducting their lives in this like weird time. And I wanted to sort of reward people for being cool and being uplifting and being, inspirational. I wanted to make it, it really was like, I know it sounds sort of kind of ego-y, but I wanted to make it little Georgie's reward for being a really cool person. And I want, as an expression of gratitude for them, that I'm glad that you're part of my digital life because you're keeping me on the planet right now. Everybody's going fucking crazy. And what you're doing is helping me somehow. So I want to take a picture of it. I want to take a picture of me, of you receiving this gift. It's not about me. I don't want a picture of me. There are no selfies of me in any of this shit. All it is you are part of my loop, and I'm grateful for you. So I started taking pictures in the spring and posting them. And that's when it sort of turned, right? And so now my girlfriend's looking at me going like, you're up to your old fucking tricks, you asshole.
You created a monster.
Right, and you've turned it into a marketing thing instead of what it was, which was this really honest and pure thing that you were doing. And I go, well, my picture's not in it. It's really not about me. It's about who, yeah, I guess I'm choosing the people who are receiving the bread because I'm surrounded by really beautiful people that I'm really grateful for. And I'm also surrounded by a bunch of fucking assholes who I'll never give a loaf of bread to fucking ever. And you know what? If they know that they're not getting a loaf of bread, maybe they should stop being assholes. There's a thing going on. So, but I didn't. Here's what really compelled me and really turned it into a thing. So, do you know Lisa Chalenza?
Yeah, from TK99.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Okay. So she's an old friend. I haven't had contact with her in 9 million years, but she's an old friend from the Hungarian days, and very valued. She used to, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't have had the successes I've had in my life. She was very supportive and an integral part of exposing that band to the masses in the way in which a band could be exposed. Back then it was like, a cable rock and roll show or something. But she was always punching for me. I didn't ask her to. She just was, because the Shuffling Hungarians was cool and she knew it. And I never really, I'd bump into her at comfort windows or something. Hey, Lisa, how you doing? This is my girlfriend, But, I called her and I said, I want to give you a loaf of bread. And she was like, okay. Because you'd be surprised how humbling that is, to contact people and say, I would like to give you this gift of a loaf of bread. And they go, fuck you. Or, you're some crazy motherfucker. I'm not, fuck that. Or conversely, fuck you, George. I'm not going to, I don't want any part of that shit. There's a lot of people. It's very humbling. Or, yeah, sure, I'll be over at 11 o'clock. And then they make you wait for fucking 5 hours. And you're just sitting there and you're trying to give them a gift. I mean, dude, it's every week, twice a week.
Is that when you do it twice a week?
I do it twice a week, and I give away up to 6 loaves of bread.
A day?
A week.
Okay, up to 6. Okay.
Twice a week.
Okay, three each.
Three on a bake day, 3.
Okay, gotcha.
Right, and sometimes it's 3. I give away 3. Sometimes I give away 2, and I keep 1 for myself. 2 for the loop, 1 for the house. Anyway, Lisa comes up, and we're sitting in her car, and we're gonna give her and she asked me, "Why are you doing this?" And I look her in the eye, and I haven't had any type of substantial exchange with her in 20 years. And I look her in the eye, and I said, I just have never had the opportunity to tell you how grateful I am to you for what you did for me back then and how I feel about you now. And I just was so raw. It just all the artifice dropped. And it's hard for me to verbally explain it, but she recognized that. And so her, force field went down too. They both went down simultaneously. We're looking at each other in the eye. And I describe it like this. You remember the movie Contact? Or any science fiction movie where you're moving at warp speed or you're moving through a wormhole and you're going at light speed, but yet everything stands still and it's like time has stopped, but you're moving at, several light years per hour, like that fast. It feels like that. It feels like you're in a vacuum. Everything drops away. You can't notice anything. All the background noise is like, the car going by, or It's all gone. It's like you're in a vacuum. You're in amniotic fluid. And it's fucking frightening. It's scary. And she and I looked at each other, and I started to cry. And she started, it was like, because you're so defenseless. Like, you don't feel it. Like, so, and then we immediately recognized it and snapped it back into plastic land, because that was just too fucking uncomfortable, right? And you get back to reality, which is plastic land. And I told a joke or something. Relief. Okay, well, thanks for the bread. Can I take your picture? Boom. But I realized that if someone was receptive to it, this is why my girlfriend says you're up to your old tricks, because I started to crave that, and I realized that I could engineer it to a certain degree. That if I was baldly honest with somebody, I was just totally naked, that I actually could manipulate the situation to the point where if they were open to receiving that you could have that moment with a lot of people, and you could really express your gratitude toward them in such a powerful way. And it was spiritually, looping somebody could be that. And that's when it became a thing. Mm-hmm. That's when I, got on a schedule and started, I'm going to do this every week, and I'm going to do it 6 times a week, and I'm going to regiment myself, and I'm going to fucking, my girlfriend's going, you're out of your fucking mind. And I go, no, because I want to feel this with people. I want to feel this connection with people, because I'm feeling so disconnected from people, and so disconnected from my friends, and so disconnected from people that I haven't even talked to. And, and like there's people that I don't even know that I've looped because I just admire what they do. Mm-hmm. There's people that hate my fucking guts that I've called and said, I want to give you a loaf of bread because I respect you, and I want you to know how grateful I am that our paths have crossed. And most times they tell me to go fuck myself. But sometimes they don't. And, it's just, it's a weird thing. And I joke now when people ask me about it, I say, it's not easy being a cult leader. That's hard fucking work. But, someone's got to do it.
The bread cult.
I got a guy in Rochester that started doing it.
Really?
And calling it the bread loop.
After watching you?
Yeah. Huh. And I got people.
How's that make you feel, though? Somebody
kind of creepy.
Yeah.
A little creepy, because I actually can see 40 moves down the chessboard that if I wanted to, if I really wanted to, I could turn this into a cult. When the local broadcast news morning show contacts you and says, we want to do a piece on you, or the local news, or we want to do a piece about the bread loop. It's a feel-good story. It's going to make people feel good during COVID. Now, I could turn that into, now it's about me. And I could turn it into me in a cult of personality thing, and I could turn it, that was my moment. And I told them no. And then they kept fucking stoning me. Say, no, we really want to do it. And I kept saying no, because I knew that I could turn it, into, like anything else I do. There's a lot of P.T. Barnum in me, and I could be a huckster and sell it. And I chose not to, because there really is a spiritual component to it that I want to keep pure, at least at this point. And I don't want to sell it out. And I don't want to.
That's amazing.
I hashtag King Arthur on a lot of my posts. And I think that people think that they're like underwriting me or something. They're not. I do it because I want people to know that if they want to do it, that was my gateway to it. These are the people that have the recipes. These are the people that have the gear. It's 100% employee-owned company. If you're gonna go buy shit to make bread, go there because they're cool people. It's not because they're paying me. It's because I want people to, Rochester. If you want to start a loop, start a loop.
Are you in touch with him?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah,
Does he ask for advice and whatnot?
And he posts and he takes pictures of the people that he loops and he puts it on the Bread Loop site, the Bread Loop Facebook page, and hashtags me and tags me, and so I share his stuff, he shares my stuff. We, show people that what's the Bread Loop about? It's about being spontaneously generous and spontaneously grateful. That's what it's about. If you can have that as a component and not just, calculated, premeditated, absolutely spontaneous. I joke. I wait for the bread to speak your name. And that's how the bread goes to you. Well, the bread, no. You know how the bread goes to you? The bread goes to you because you're not an asshole. And I'm watching you. I'm watching what you do. I'm watching how you interact with people. I'm watching what you do for your community. I'm seeing how you conduct your life. I'm also seeing that you're into the bread loop. People that comment, people that share, people that invite their friends to the site. If someone contacts me and says, yeah, I invited all of my 200 friends. And, I see an uptick of 5 people. I watch the metrics, and I see an uptick of 5 people who have followed the bedroom. I know that they're participating. It's a participation award. Everybody, let's uplift everybody. Do we have to tear everybody down all the time? Do we have to be crabs in a bucket? Do we have to be territorial, pissing on our little fucking slice of ever-shrinking pie? Fuck that. It's stupid. It's just dumb. And there's people in Utica, like when I saw you and heard you talking to that executive director of the Stanley, and I went, oh, you know what? This guy understands. This guy is going to get looped.
I'm already loopy, George.
I know, but you know what I mean? It's like, and I want to loop her too because she gets it too. That they're building something. Mm-hmm. There's a guy, I don't even know the guy. There's a guy in Syracuse. His name is Michael John Haggerty. And he's like a local booster guy, and he makes shit happen, and he's a young cat. He's got a lot of energy. I don't even know him. And I contacted him one day. I said, I want to give you a loaf of bread because I just love what you do. And he told me to go fuck myself. But that's not the point. The point is that he also knows that I'm noticing, right? And that I know that I'm noticing. That's what's in it for me, is that I want to help promote an energy, not myself. I want to help promote a zeitgeist, not myself. That's what the bread loop is.
I love the fact that it's something as so simple as bread that you're giving back to the community.
It's communion.
Yeah, and like you said, participation award type of thing. You're recognizing what these people are doing in the community.
It's bread, dude.
Right. Yeah.
It's fucking communion.
Right.
It's the fucking host.
Yeah.
It's the staff of fucking life.
It's the Eucharist.
It's yes, my friends. That's what it's fucking bread. I'm on a low carb diet. Dude, slice it up, freeze it, have a slice, every month. That's not the point. The point is that it's bread. It's bread. It's the thing that can turn into a fish or vice versa. So yeah, I mean, I'm a lapsed Catholic, but yeah, someone pointed it out to me. Again, these things are pointed out to me. I don't see it.
Yeah.
I'm not.
It's more of an impulse thing for you.
Yeah, I'm not premeditating it. And someone said, he's saying loop, but what he really means is love. And you know what? That was right. He's saying, you're in my loop. What he's saying is that, or you're being looped. That's what he's saying. What he means is that you're being loved.
That's a good interpretation.
I didn't. Until someone pointed it out to me, I didn't really think about it like that, but that's exactly what it is. It's me, so I'm looking at my friends. I'm looking at people. I'm looking at online activity. I mean, yeah, it is dictated to a certain degree by, Zuckerberg's algorithm, which is giving me a skewed version of what's happening in my community. But, it is what it is.
It's amazing. It is. It's something as simple
So
as
that's the bread loop. And if you want to be looped, if you want the bread to speak your name, don't be an asshole.
I love it.
You know, and you know, let the bread know that you exist. How do you do that? Through your actions, words, and deeds. That's how. And if it goes by my radar, I'm going to see it.
So, do we expect when you're out gigging again and you form this band, are we going to expect some loaves of bread on your merch table?
Dude, you know, I was thinking, like, what if I actually like gave communion as part of the fucking show? Think about it. I mean, see,
They're going to think you're David Koresh.
Yes, well, right, and that's, you know, that's where that worm turns. That's where. Come on, you don't think that I didn't think about that? Of course I did. I said, oh, this will be fucking hysterical. We'll all wear robes. You know, it'll be part of the show. We're playing like, you know, some sort of like, because the Shoving Hungarians thing, I mean, you've been to those shows. Part of those shows was that it was a tribal stomp. It wasn't just, you know, songs or entertainment. It was like, you know, groove, tribal stomp.
Yeah.
Bodies sweating. Everybody, you know, in very close quarters.
It was great energy you put out there.
Right? You
Each
know
and
what I
every
mean?
show.
But it was definitely, you know, to me, shaman tribe. And the Hungarian tribe and doing that thing. So certainly, natural extension, I'm going to have a loaf of loop bread, and I'm going to cut it in very small pieces.
And everybody's going to line up.
And we're going to have a groove, and everybody's going to line up, and I'm going to give communion.
Are you going to have, take this in honor of me? This is a loaf of my body.
Well, that's when it becomes... That's when it becomes so fucking twisted and screwy, and I go, I don't know if I want to do that.
Yeah, but they'll always remember that, though.
Well, of course, because I know how to fucking put on a show, and appeal to people at that level. That's what that is. You know, like you have to appeal to people on a fundamental body, you know, gut-brained level, their spirituality. That's what that was a big part of the Shoveling Hungarians was doing that. But, you know, that was me when I was 30, 35. I'm 60 now. And I don't know if I need that in my life. I don't need it, you know. I often, like with the musical projects that I'm working on now, they're very complex. They involve a lot of moving parts. They involve a lot of bodies. They involve a lot of interfacing with people. And sometimes I think, you know what? I'd rather paint a fucking cookie than do this shit. You know, my ego doesn't need this. This is too hard. This is for somebody that will eat that amount of shit sandwich to make something happen. I don't need to do that anymore. This is, you know, music to me is, it's either got to be fun, and it's got to be challenging to me. It's got to be, I have to be that's the other thing about the Shoveling Hungarians that people don't understand is that I'm not looking to entertain you. Sorry, I'm not. I'm looking to entertain myself.
Mm-hmm.
If I can entertain myself, that's my harshest critic. That's my harshest audience.
Mm-hmm. And if it trickles down, great.
If you see it and you're entertained by it, then that's great. But the authentic thing that's going to entertain you is that I'm entertaining myself. I'm not, you know, like when I went to New Orleans, the mindset, it's totally different. The mindset is that, you know, no, you give the people what they want.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you give the people what they want. We know what the people want. We play on Bourbon Street. We know what the world wants. And actually, this is actually a direct quote. I was putting together a band down in New Orleans, and I was teaching them original material. And one of the guys that I was working with, who was a guitarist who had played, was a session player for Alan Toussaint, played on Lady Marmalade, you know, the Pointer Sisters,
yeah.
and played on. You know, with all those Alan Toussaint records, you know, he was the session guitar, along with the Meters and all these guys, right? And he said, you know, why are we learning, you know, your music? And I happened to have a copy of Blues Review where my name is on the cover next to me. It was in my apartment. He says, why are we learning your music? We should be learning, Mustang Sally. I know what the people want. We should be learning Europa. Everybody knows these tunes. We got to fucking learn how to play this shit. And no one knows it. And I said, you're right. You do know what the people want. And this is the path of least resistance, is to play shit that everybody knows or anything. But doing that, and I pulled out the magazine, is never going to get your name on the cover of a fucking magazine. And he looked at me. And, the tumbler clicked. I said, so you're always going to be that guy. You're always going to be that sideman guy, that guy that plays Europa in a fucking bar on Bourbon Street. I don't want to be that guy. I want to be Al Toussaint. That's what I'm looking at.
Mm-hmm.
So, ego. Am I entertaining myself?
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way that I can let go of those ego things. I don't, I don't want to think about if people like me or not, or think I'm good or not. I don't care anymore.
It's all about feeding your soul, right?
Yeah. Number one, I've learned that there's just going to be people that think you suck.
Mm-hmm. Always. You're always going to have critics, no matter what.
There's always going to be people that think you suck.
Mm-hmm.
No, that aren't even giving you constructive criticism. They just think you suck.
Are you fueled by that though?
I used to be fueled by hate.
Mm-hmm.
That's my Utica thing, right? That's Oh yeah. I mean, that was the thing with Bob. Get that head of hate going, right? The whole shoveling. I'll tell you. When you're making art, that head of hate is a great motivator.
Mm-hmm. It is.
The problem is that it's not sustainable.
Yeah, and it could cloud your judgment too.
It's just toxic after a while, and it's not sustainable. It's rocket fuel, but it's incredibly volatile.
I agree.
And it eats away at your gas tank eventually.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I gave it up. It was just like, you know what? I'm not liking where this is going. Again, 40 steps ahead. I don't like being motivated by hate or the lack of self-esteem. It's just, I may be successful, but you turn into Donald Trump. That's what that is. That's someone that has been fueled by the lack of self-esteem for their entire life. That's what you got. Is he successful? Yeah, he was president of the United States. As a human being,
That's questionable. Right?
That's highly not. It's not even questionable in my mind. So, you know what? Some people choose to go down that path. Mm-hmm. Caesar, Alexander the Great, any great historical figure, I think is driven by the lack of, that curious mixture of absolute, megalomania, egotism, and total lack of self-esteem. I run into that a lot, especially with musicians who have both. And it's weird. Mm-hmm. It's weird because they don't know how great they are, and yet they think they're the fucking greatest thing since sliced bread. They're incredible. Those personality types are very hard to work with.
Yeah, I agree.
Because they don't. Here's what I would use as an example. When I was in New Orleans, I got asked to play with Cyril Neville. Cyril Neville asked me to play in his band.
Wow.
Now, when I was a kid, listening to the Neville Brothers, who was 16 years old, and on the 8-track in the parking lot of Skaneateles Central High School, and smoking a joint on, before classes started, and I'm listening and thinking to myself, someday I'm gonna play with these motherfuckers. Little Feat, whatever, Robert Palmer, Sneakin' Sally with the Meters, Neville Brothers, always on my radar since day one. And someday I'm gonna play with them. So Cyril Neville asked me to play in his band.
Wow.
Okay. So I'm in the band. So I'm playing with these guys. Mean Willie Green, Charles Moore, Nick Daniels. I mean, these are guys that have either been in the Neville Brothers band or are in bands now that you've probably heard of.
New Orleans legends.
Legendary musicians. And I'm this Yankee white invader. And the only white guy. And I'm thinking to myself, I don't belong here. And questioning myself all the time and having a crisis of self-confidence because these guys are so good. And I'm a schmuck from Syracuse, New York that can't fucking play. I mean, one of the reasons about going to New Orleans was to see, I'm big fish, small pond. Let's see what you can really do. You immediately see what you can't do. Because,
put you in check quick, huh?
Well, right, because all the greatest piano players in the world live in New Orleans and go from all over the world to practice their craft in New Orleans because that's where all the piano players are. And so you go, holy fuck, I don't know shit. You know what I studied when I was in New Orleans? I studied Beethoven sonatas. I learned how to play the piano. For real. Finally. I didn't study jazz in the birthplace of jazz. I didn't study gospel music in the birthplace of gospel music. I studied Beethoven because I realized that I had to actually learn how to play the piano correctly because I had been avoiding doing that work my whole entire life. Anyway, so I'm in Cyril's band, and people are telling me what to do, how to play, whatever. And they're, it's a rough and tumble thing. It's not, it's not like we're going to nurture you into becoming a good musician. It's like keep up or get the fuck out.
Was it militant?
No, it was aggressively nasty.
Okay.
Right, but your protection against that is the thing that I didn't know that I had is that there is a reason why Cyril Neville asked me to be in that band, and I did not see it, right? I didn't see that there was reasons why he asked me to do it. I just thought that people were beating up on me because they could beat up on me. That's sort of the same experience I had in the Boogeymen with Tim Harrington and Vinny Ludovico and Bob Acquaviva, quite frankly. Those motherfuckers beat the fucking crap out of me. Mm-hmm. And it's you either steel up and be a man and fucking, get into the forge and harden yourself, or get the fuck out.
Yeah. Were they trying to toughen you up? Like trying to show you your potential?
Toughen me up,
yeah.
But you don't see it,
right?
You just think that oh my God, I'm getting fucking torn out. You don't see that you're at the party for a reason, and you happen to be the weak link in the chain. So we're gonna fucking get you up to speed. You don't see that when you're the object of that, right? So when I was with Cyril, it was sort of the same thing. And after I played with him for 3 years, and after I left him, and when I got some retrospective, and quite frankly, when I started to listen to the records that I produced for him, that sound fucking amazing, and are arranged fucking. That's why he had me in the band, and I didn't even recognize that. That's why he had me there. I didn't, I was just fucking stupid.
And how long were you with him?
That's like 3 years.
3 years.
Like a long time. And I just didn't see it because I didn't have my self-confidence game together. Mm-hmm. So shoes on the other foot. So now I'm working on a new Hungarians record. I've been working on it for 4.5 years.
Currently.
Okay. And the talent pool, everybody, there's lots of talented people in Syracuse and Utica, but there's not a lot of people that know how to make records because that's not a thing up here, really. It's cover bands and tribute bands and multi-artist large shows that pay tribute to an artist or an event or whatever. That's the thing that makes money. It's making records is not. It's not like Austin, Texas, or Nashville, or New Orleans, or L.A., or New York. It's not. So, that's why Lenny Milano's the drummer on the record, is because Lenny Milano actually is one of the few guys in the 315 that know how to make records.
And he's a clock.
And he knows that I know how to make records. It's a good marriage. We're simpatico. But, my experience about making this record, there's a lot of people that walk in, into a session having that crisis of confidence, not realizing that you have been invited to Little Georgie's party because Little Georgie has recognized that you have something that he wants at his party. And so they come in and, I mean, these are world-class musicians that have nothing to contribute. And you have to pull it out of them like a tooth. And believe me, those aren't fun sessions. They're extractions. They're not fun. They're awful. And then you got a guy like Paul Serra, you know, sax player, plays with Joey Bonamassa now, but he's played with, you know, Larry Carlton, and, you know, and he was an original shoveling Hungarian. He's from the 315. Who else? He's played with Lucky Peterson. He's played with he's been on the road his whole entire life. I mean, he's, in my estimation, one of the better working soul, R&B, blues based saxophonists in the world. He's like probably the best one that I know of. And he happens to be my friend, and he happens to be a former shuffling Hungarian. He's on the record. When he comes in to do a session, he comes in, okay, I want you to play a solo here, and boop, done. And then, do you want to take another pass at it? Or he asks me, should I do another pass? I say, no, that's fine. Session lasts 3 minutes. This is like the story I was telling you about cutting those things for Lest We Forget live. You know, that's how it should be. Mm-hmm. It should be, let the artist do their thing, capture it. And as an artist, realize that you're there and you have the opportunity in a recording studio to express yourself and be prepared.
And the spontaneous take can always be the best take, too.
Yeah, but be prepared for the spontaneity. No, there's an art to that. And so when, you know, guitar player X walks in, and he's had the backing track, he's had the rhythm track, and he's had a chart, and he's had a demo of other guitar players playing the song, and he walks into the session, and he doesn't know, has nothing prepared. Hey, George, I was thinking that maybe this would be kind of cool. Oh, you don't like this? Well, I've got this in my back pocket. When I do session, that's what Bob taught me. When I do a session, someone comes in and says, you know, Bob gives me the track. He says, you know, I've got John Stetke coming to Utica and play. And he gives me something, you know, to prepare. So when I go in and I say, okay, John, I've got this. And I play it. He goes, I don't like that. I got 50 other fucking things in my back pocket ready to go. How about this one? I don't like that. How about this one? Well, I like that idea. Let's, you know, how about this one? Oh, right? I'm prepared. So by the time I know exactly what he wants, and that process might take like 5 minutes, then the actual session takes another 5 minutes. And he pays you for the hour. What he doesn't do is he doesn't expect to pay you for the next 5 hours because you've got to build a track and make, you know, now with digital, you know, I've worked with musicians that are supposed to be like the top of their craft. They'll play a solo. It's so fucking bad. And I'll do like 18 fucking passes and have them there for fucking 3 hours. And then they'll look at you.
It's just a big time waster.
Well, no. Then they'll look at it and you say, well, you can make a comp track out of that, right? Well, yeah. Well, okay, well, make me sound great. See you later. And you're looking at another 20 hours of work to memorize what they've played and piece together note by note a cohesive solo. Yeah, you know, when that happened,
it's too much work.
Well, I called up Jeff Stockham that day of that session. I called him up and I said, Jeff, you do anything? No. Come down. 5 minutes later, solo. See you the fuck later. That's how it's supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So,
and knowing the pond you're fishing out of too.
I hate to say it, but like I said, there's lots of great players in the 305. Great players. Great. Do they know how to make records? That's a limited talent. Mm-hmm. It just is.
Yeah.
And you know what? Maybe not now with the advent of home recording and the fact that people kind of have to do it on their own now more. You know, the studio, there is a thing called red line fever or red light fever.
Yeah, there is.
You know, sure. It's funny, like Lenny busts my balls because we rehearse every week. And we record every rehearsal. They're multi-track recordings. We post, you know, I post every rehearsal. You know, every rehearsal is a record as far as I'm concerned. Because it helps me to practice my craft. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm going, oh, you know, I'll do this or I'll do that or I'll use this plugin or I'll do that. You know, and it's also a pleasant experience, and it gets me ready to, release stuff. But Lenny bust my balls before we do a take, because video is going to be involved in this stuff. I said, well, you got to slate the takes, even though the cameras aren't on. He goes, well, why? I goes, because I want people to get used to you doing this, to slate a take. I just want everybody in the room to hear it. We've been doing that since September, and we haven't started videoing until a month ago. But we've been slating takes, and he's, I don't, but when we tried the video for the first time, and everybody was like stepping on their own dicks and choking, the instruction was, listen for the click. What does that feel like? And take a deep breath and remember that he's been doing that since September, and we've been grabbing everything in one take, and that gets everybody to settle down.
And it's go time.
And you get the take.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we're not building this shit from the ground up in this new project I'm doing. We're cutting live, live vocals, everything live, no fixing, just like Ray Charles used to do. Nobody's fixing shit. You either get it or you don't.
If people want to check this out, how can they view this?
They can't yet.
They can't. Okay, so it's not up yet.
We're not ready to launch it yet.
Okay.
But the game plan was, prior to COVID, was to release the record and then launch the video components this fall. It doesn't look like we're going to hit that because everybody was down for a year.
Yeah.
But we're going to try. It's interesting. It's a cool project.
Is your music on the streaming platforms?
No.
No, nothing.
No. Again, you asked this question about technology and moving forward. I'm planning on putting the old stuff.
You should. Live is Stanley should be on Spotify.
I'm planning on doing it.
You don't make dick on Spotify.
Well, that's the old school. When you're thinking about like being older and being left in the technological dust. Yeah, in the 80s when your parents are going like, "Can you program the VCR for me?" And and then like walking them through like how to fucking do it, and then writing in step-by-step instructions for her. I'm turning into that person, driving me nuts. I'm looking at DAWs and video, complex video editing software, and Final Cut Pro or DaVinci Resolve or Logic or Pro Tools, and look at that. I mean, before it was always the engineer did that. You focused on the aesthetic, right? And let him think about capturing it on tape. It's not like that anymore.
It's a lot of work.
It's
a lot of learning.
And promoting yourself. Before, there used to be a fourth estate. You knew how to manipulate them, and you had the training to interface with them. Now, everybody's their own publicist.
Yeah.
And they, frankly, don't have the skill set, which is why everybody's, screaming at each other on the internet thinking that it's freedom of speech, and it's, everything is so democratized, and yet there's a low level of skill. Now, that being said, although the delivery systems have changed, I think that the core concepts still remain the same about how to, grow something and make it a combined commercial and artistic endeavor. I think that the core concepts are the same. You have to have the same things in the DNA. You have to have the same approaches. They're just the delivery systems are different. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You can do a live stream thing. I could do a live stream thing at any time. I could have done it. I've chosen not to do it. Why? Is it because I'm old school? No. Or maybe it is. To me, I think that art should have a value on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And even though, yes, art and commerce intertwine, and so you have things like sponsorship like you have for your show, or, Orson Welles has to go out and get underwriting for his movie and give somebody an executive production credit when all they did was give him money. Or, somebody has to please, contribute to my Venmo account or whatever. To me, there's a lot of giving it away for free.
Yeah.
And not enough of the realization that, honestly, if I was going to evaluate what I've got in my record that I've got 2/3 of the way done right now with my partners that are investing their sweat equity in or their, whatever equity they've got, we've got about $150,000 into that record. If you think about, how much money it cost to record EJA by Steely Dan, let's say in the mid-'70s, that's a $3 million record. Easy. Back then. And that record will always stand the test of time. When engineers want to say, what's a perfectly engineered record? They'll still go to that record 50 years after the fact. They'll still go to that record because it's a $3 million record. If you want to make something of quality that has staying power, that has legs, you have to spend that kind of money.
Yeah, and time.
And time. So I don't have $3 million, which the equivalent today would be more like $5 million. This is actually... Speaking of Steely Dan, I'm in the basement of the Apollo Theater for the fundraiser for the New York Jazz Association 4 years ago. And I'm talking to Donald Fagen. And I asked him, I said, you're touring, obviously, this is before Becker died. You're touring, you're making money, you and your partner are making money. I get it. The band is great. And the shows are great. I said, but, do you have any interest in at this stage in your career of continuing to make records? And he looked me right in the eyes because fuck you. and I go, what? He goes, that's just a fucking arrogant, shitty fucking thing to say to me. He says to me, and I'm like, he's my hero, and I've just insulted him. I'm really sorry, Mr. Fagan. I didn't mean to say. He goes, no, you don't understand something. The business model does not support the way in which we make records. I would love to make records. I can't make records. I'm not allowed to make records anymore, he says to me.
Wow.
This is Donald Fagen, who's made the greatest record of all time with Bruce Sweden and Donald, Becker. They've made or Walter Becker. They've made one of the greatest records of all time. And the industry will not allow me to make a record.
Isn't that amazing? And it's just because of the sign of the times, too, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And, so when you read the Lefsetz letter, I love Bob Lefsetz, but, some of his tropes, the little, notes that he keeps singing about how anybody can make a hit record in their fucking bedroom now. Fuck you. No, they can't. Not with other people. You can't. Believe me, remote recording, even with Zoom, if you're not next to that person, if you go, Mr. Session Musician, I want you to play bass on my record. Here's the drum track. He's going to do whatever the fuck he wants to do or what he feels is appropriate. He's not going to be interfacing with you or interacting with you or helping you to achieve your vision. So it's not the same. It's not humans sweating on one another and spitting on one another. That's a different deal. Is that gone for good?
No.
Well, it might be.
Yeah, you think so?
Well, it might be. I mean, that is how I made a record with. I did a session for the Flash Cubes a few years ago. Gary's my friend. Artie's my friend. Tommy Allen's my friend. Tommy produces these tracks. They did a tribute to Roy Wood, and Tommy did the drum track in New York. He sends the drum track up here. They all record in GarageBand and do all their parts. Mark Hudson sang all the background vocals down in L.A. It's all done remotely. I played the piano in Gary's kitchen and did the piano parts. And you know what? The fucking record sounds great. If people know what they're doing, it's a great sounding record. It's an amazing sounding record. But my experience with the remote recording is like every time it comes back, it's like,
it lacks energy, right?
It lacks energy, and it also it ain't aligning. You know, so now you have to like ask for a revision and another revision and another revision and another revision. And now they were going like, you know, dude, you've only paid me fucking $100 for this track. Fuck you. Right? And so now you're in the position where you have to make a compromise. I'm saying like, well, it's that commitment to mediocrity. Well, it's good enough. That's one thing that I learned from Bob. It's never good enough. And if you're in a studio situation, and you're trying to rationalize yourself into saying like, well, I can work with that. I can fix that in the mix. That's good enough. That's when you stop yourself and you continue to move forward to get what you don't have, because you know you don't have it. And even if you beat the fucking crap out of somebody, you gotta fucking extract it and get it. And that's how you make records. And that makes people extremely uncomfortable when they realize they're not giving you what you need, and you are now beating the fucking crap out of them, because they think you're beating the crap out of them just for the sake of, because you're psychotic, and that you can beat the crap out of them. And it's not. You're actually, you know, directed in trying to get the perfect thing that you hear in your head. I gotta say that what I've been doing so far is the closest I've ever gotten to what's in my head, because I have been afforded the opportunity with my partner to burn time. As you know, as much time as you need. We're not looking at the clock going like, oh, you know,
yeah,
we got to get going. That's not what's happening.
Take as much time as you need,
you know,
to make it right.
Make it right. You know, get it right. You know, if we got to punt and come back to it, we will get it. I can't tell you how many times I've recorded, you know, like when they're, you know, again, Fagan, I bring him up because he's a hero, but like they're talking about the solo on Peg. They recorded, you know, what, 10 guitar players playing 10 different solos. Like if you go online, you can see them behind the board calling up the old solos that they didn't use.
Oh, wow.
And going like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. That's, you know. And they ended up on, you know, The Last Guy. So they burned through like 10 of the highest paid session musicians.
Wow.
To get this one, you know, 30, 40-second snippet of music, you know. And that's kind of what I'm doing, only I'm doing it with no money. You know, so, you know, how do you make something, you know, again, I'm going to give credit where credit is due. This is what I learned from Bob Aquaviva. How do you make a 20,000 record sound like you spent $150,000 on it? How do you make a, you know, a $30,000 record sound like you've spent $500,000?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm making a record that sounds like I spent $500,000 on it. And, you know, dead to rights. Time. If you were going to evaluate time, I have about $75,000 into the record between me and my partner. Just studio time.
Amazing.
That, you know, but it's his studio. Therefore, we can blow that kind of time.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm retired, so I can blow that kind of time. I'm not looking to, it's not like I'm producing it for an artist for a label. It's my record. Again, if you're selling yourself, Z, you're willing to make lots of sacrifices and compromises and go balls to the wall where maybe you wouldn't before.
That's a fact, man. So when you get this album out, though, make sure you come back because we got to do this again.
You mean we're stopping?
I gotta pee.
Oh man, I'm just getting warmed up.
Let's go, brother.
I just get warmed up, man. No. I love this.
Do you believe we burned through almost 2 hours already?
Fuck, I'm a chatty Cathy, aren't I?
Which is what happens when you get two Italians in a room together.
You didn't talk at all.
That's all right. Just let you go. You're like the Energizer Bunny.
Yeah.
Wind them up and watch them go.
Honestly, I wanted to avoid doing that because I saw it happen before on here, and I fell.
No, I love it. Actually.
I fell right into the fucking rabbit hole.
That's what I love. That guests that can talk and just hold a conversation and just like you just shut up and let them go and let them tell their story. To me, this is great content.
All right.
This is you have a great story.
I will gladly.
We didn't even scratch the surface.
No. Are you kidding me? I was hoping I could like dish a lot of dirt and piss a lot of fucking people off.
Why, you got a list?
Oh yeah. No. I'm like I said, I'm a cult leader now.
Yeah, right.
I'm gonna
George Koresh.
Yes, I got.
You got Kool-Aid with you?
I do have some specific needs though for the cult. I need a costume designer.
Okay.
I need a set decorator. I need a jewelry designer.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, we got to do this right.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I mean,
If you're gonna go, you got to go big.
well, you got to do it bigger than like, let's say, Prince did it. You know, I mean, that was a whole thing. The look, the thing. We're all gonna, you know, one of the things about the videos, I said it. I built a little broadcast, similar, not as cool as this, but in my house, I built a little production facility in my house, and I said, and it looks like a living room. You know, it does look very comfy and, you know, like a home. That sort of sound baffled, but I said what we should do is we should do all the videos in our pajamas, right? So like wearing silk pajamas and, you know, cigarette holders and smoking joints.
Get all bougie.
Yeah, you know, like kind of right. And just, you know, from the lounging area, the shuffling Hungarians from the secret undisclosed location, you know, here we are, and do it in pajamas. So I'm always thinking about doing stupid shit like that. I don't know. My mind.
Does it ever stop?
No.
Yeah. Do you tend to be an overthinker sometimes?
Well, people would say that. To me, it's not.
No.
I don't think that there's a thing as overthinking. I think there's a thing of over equivocating. You know, when it, where it paralyzes you from forward motion, where the Hamlet
takes you away from the present.
Well, the Hamlet thing. Should I kill my father or not? If I murder him, he's not going to go to heaven. He's not going to go to hell, and I want him to go to hell because he killed my father-in-law, because he killed my father. The Hamlet thing, where he just over-equivocates into a position of inaction until all fucking hell breaks loose. I don't do that. I may overthink. I may theoretically run through war game models to figure out what potential outcomes are going to be. And my mind does work that fast, where I'll calculate that, and then I'll go, okay, here's where we go. I'm really good at not driving the bus into a tree. Sometimes I do. But more times than not, I'm really good at looking at other people saying, like, tree, don't do that, tree, there's a tree, up ahead. No, tree, no, fuck, give me the wheel, right? I'm really good at that, and that's, and I don't feel bad about saying that. That I don't think that's overthinking. I think that's just knowing how to run through theoretical models and getting your desired outcome. Like like the shoveling, like the Tom Kenny and the push balls. It's like, okay, here's the theoretical model. If I play this a certain way, I'm going to get a certain outcome. Yep. And so was that overthinking? Was it, that's my rep. Oh, he's over manipulative. No, you're just maybe not thinking as hard as I am. I'm not over manipulative. I just kind of like can see a little bit further down the road than maybe other people can. And
you have a vision and you stick with it.
Well, why not attach yourself to it? If that's my thing. If there was, if someone came to me right now and said, I really like the fact that you can do that. I can do that too. Let's take that away from me. Joe Bonamassa's manager, Roy, saw that in Joe, saw that in Lenny when Joe was very, very young.
You saw it on TV.
And said, I like that. I see what you're doing. I can do the same thing. They do this. That's not the manager takes 15, 20% and Joe takes the rest. That's 50-50. That's an Elvis Tom Parker deal.
Yeah, and they've been together for a long time.
And they've been together for a long time. You know why? Because they know they both can fucking do that. If someone came to me and said, I can fucking do it, and they had a track record of doing it, here's your 50%. It's never happened. When someone can do it better than me, please, fucking anytime. I'm waiting for you. I've been waiting for 30 years. Come on down. The price is right. Every man has his price. Mine's real low right now. Like, please, because that's the overthinking part. It's not the fact that you're overthinking. It's that you just have too much on your plate to think about. It's like processing. We're all computers. It's processing speed.
Yeah.
If I could take some of that processing load off of my processor so I could do things like write songs, I'd like to do that rather than scheduling a rehearsal, with people that can't make time commitments. That clogs up the machine.
Yep.
That's all it is. We're just here for a brief time. We're just machines.
That's it.
We can only do so much.
That's it.
So
it's an amazing universe that we live in, huh?
I don't like to get too. I have friends that hate the fact that I get metaphysical about, the universe. But I really do believe that you do, get out of life what you put into it.
Exactly.
That you and that the energy that ends up surrounding you. See, this is what I don't like about that shit, The Secret and all that shit, is that you think you can choose it. That you can choose your bubble of sycophancy so that you're not, hurt by any harsh realities. I hate that shit. I don't want to live in a bubble of sycophancy. I want to know what I'm doing wrong. I want to know what other people's opinions are. I want to know what dissent is. And I want to, from people I respect. I have a board of directors of artists all over the world, musicians and producers and people that are in the music industry that get the product that, prematurely, that here's a rough mix of something. Here's a basic track of something. They come back at me and they tell me when I'm full of shit. They tell me when something is shit. And you know what?
I'll put you in check.
I want that.
Yeah.
I invite that. That doesn't mean that, because again, I've resolved the self-esteem issues, and I've realized that there are people that are better at shit than I'm at, and that I can call upon that. It's not about the fact that I didn't do it myself, because you know what? And we talked about this too. I still get the credit. I still get the credit. I don't have to piss on a piece of territory. I can invite the energy in and make the territory actually expand. That's, so when you're talking about like investing in the universal energy grid, investing in the universal energy grid by allowing the energy to flow through the grid, and that means you have to get the fuck out of the way. Right? It doesn't mean curating your bubble, your celestial sphere. That's how they thought about it in the fucking Dark Ages, and that's what that is. Like, I'm going to cultivate this thing that's going to give me this energy. It's not. It's only you're going to kill everything around you by building that, living in a bubble. It doesn't make any sense. I always use the metaphor of the energy production in the sun, because the sun is all about energy production.
Absolutely.
But the byproduct of energy production is gravitational pull. You have this, insane amount of energy being produced, and neutrinos flying through us and through our bodies, and heat and light, and 100,000 atom bombs going off per second, whatever the equation is. It's something crazy like that. And then you have the core of the sun where all of that is happening, and then you have the envelope of the sun that's pushing down on that core, containing it so that it is this operating system of energy production. But in the end, what happens is that it creates gravity, that sort of unbridled thing happening in the core combined with the containment of the envelope creates gravitational pull. So as an artist, what do you have to do? You have to create. You have to be the core. But you also have to be surrounded by an envelope to make a sustainable force of energy that will sustain life on Earth, and also, pull things in your orbit that creates the planets and creates the moons and creates the stuff that creates that little system. And that's a successful artistic career.
When you can harness all that, for sure.
But you have to. But at its core, the core does not give a fuck about the envelope. The core does not give a fuck about any of that thing. So many people. I mean, that's my major complaint about the 315. Everybody's all concerned about being the envelope. Nobody's the core, or few. There has to be both. Mm-hmm. We're really good at envelope around here. We're really good at putting on a show, to the point that the most successful music stories, I think, that come out of Syracuse and Utica are the people that work within the music industry. Mm-hmm. I was talking to Stacy. We were talking about Stacy. I was talking to Stacy the other day. We were talking about like the best shows we'd ever heard. And I said, geez, one of the best shows I've ever heard outdoors was Dave Matthews at the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. There was about 150,000 people. Broke all kinds of attendance records. And I happened to have a little access, and I was in the sound tower on the ground, right under the sound man. And it was the most amazing. I'm not a big fan of Dave Matthews, but it was the most amazing thing I'd ever heard in my life. And I've heard that PA for 15 straight years. I've heard that at the Acura stage or the Ray-Ban stage, whatever. I've heard that PA forever. I never heard it like that before. She goes, oh, yeah, he's from Syracuse. He's so-and-so. He's my friend. Because Stacy, she knows everybody.
She knows everybody.
Right, But and I was like, what? Oh, yeah, he's been the front of house guy for Dave Matthews for the past 5 years. That's a successful music industry career. On the level of a Joe Bonamassa, mm-hmm. on the level of a Mo, on the level of those are the people that I look to and go like, I would like to be operating on that level. Those are the people that I admire and mm-hmm. respect.
Both of those that you mentioned too are they're machines.
Yeah.
Bonamassa's a machine. He's out there on the road all the time. Mo's road warriors, and he just nonstop. Pre-COVID, of course, and then now that it seems like things are starting to come back a little bit.
But they crafted their own thing.
For sure.
They did it. Both of those people mm-hmm. crafted their own thing, and they did it on their own terms. I mean,
exactly.
Joe is not a traditional music industry success story.
Oh no, it's all independent.
Yeah.
Look at how he cut his teeth and grinded so many years on the road and 300 shows a year. And
crazy!
Amazing how hard they work.
So here's my Joe. Because Joe is an unofficial shuffling Hungarian. When he was 17, Bob said, "Hey, there's this guy. You should get him on your record." We were working on the first record. I said, "Sure, I've heard about him." Lenny would bring him around all the blues gigs and stage dadding them and making them play with everybody in town. Oh yeah, I know who he is. Yeah, he can play. I've seen him play. So we get into the studio, and in comes Lenny and Joe's 17. He's probably 40 pounds, 50 pounds overweight, wearing clodhopper boots and overalls, and he looks like fucking Clem Kniddlehopper. and I go, okay, and he pulls the guitar out, and Bob sets up a silver anniversary Marshall for him in the recording room, and we play the track for him. Hi, Lenny, exchange pleasantries, and I said, you ready? Yeah. So, he's cutting in the control room, amps in the recording room, and he plays the solo on the back end outro of a tune, and it's just fucking brilliant, right? Just the first take, right? And it's so amazing, and the way and Bob at that point was sort of taking control of Joe as far as here's how you get real tone, and was under his wing, showing him stuff. So Bob had set up the amp with Joe, and he does a solo, and he blows the amp up. There's fucking smoke coming out of the amp. at the end of the take. And Joe's like 17. Oh, Bob, I'm sorry. Like very apologetic. And it's like fucking legend just happened in the studio. Like, and Bob and I are both looking at each other. Sorry. Are you fucking kidding me? We have a narrative for the rest of our lives for, this is the greatest thing that could have ever been. I think Bob probably engineered, probably had a fucking switch on the amp to blow it up. Knowing Bob, but yeah, so that was Joe on the Shoveling Hungarians record. And then I'm sitting talking to him, and Joe, the thing about Joe that was really cool is like he was studying everybody, including me. I was the first guy that did that whole fucking independent record thing in the 315 to that degree.
He's still a student.
And and when I see the fact that everything that he's done was, and I told him, I said, Joe, do everything based on ownership. Own your label, own your masters, own everything. It's slower, you'll be happier. And he does. That's exactly how he and Roy did it.
Mm-hmm.
They own everything.
Yes.
Down to the fucking bobblehead. Down to the semi, down to the, they own everything.
It's an amazing career he's had.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And I'm so, I'm so just in awe of that. And again, I don't understand why people, again, why would you fucking slag that shit down?
Don't get me started, because there should be a fucking statue of the kid in Utica. There should be like a street named after the guy. There should be an annual, every year there should be a Joe Bonamassa weekend here in Utica where we shut down streets and we have a huge fucking festival and we get his guitars and we put them on display and we pay homage to the guy. This really aggravates me.
Oh, it aggravates the shit out of me.
Me too. I'm very passionate about this.
It's that 315 commitment to fucking mediocrity.
Yes.
Here's something that, that happened.
Right.
Here's something that, and it happened organically, and someone busted their fucking ass to do it. Mm-hmm. Are you fucking kidding me?
Right.
You're gonna, like somehow you think that slagging that shit is gonna fucking differentiate you and make you cool or make you, fuck you.
Right.
Fuck you. You have no fucking clue about what really goes on in the real fucking world.
Yes.
That's why, I know that, I'm aware of what people say behind my back. I'm aware of what the talk is. I'm aware that, and, coming from people who I love, who I'm close to, that I fucking made a lot of fucking sacrifices for them to be able to ply their craft, they're talking shit about me. You know what I say? I've said it, it's in the New Times. People love to quote it. It says, yeah, I'm grateful that we did things together. I'm grateful that we made music together. You were a master at your craft. You were the very best at what you did. You were a master plumber. But don't forget who the fucking genius was. Fuck you. I'm the one that built the fucking platform for you to ply your fucking craft.
Mm-hmm. And all you did was sit there with your hand out.
Or bitch.
Or bitch.
Or complain. Or moan. Or, even if you weren't in the inner sanctum, looking at it going like, how come they're getting all that, press? And how come they're selling all those records? They're not that good. Fuck you. I'll show you how to do it. Mm-hmm. But you don't possess the intestinal fortitude, the backbone to fucking do it. To get off my fucking back while I'm doing it.
The commitment to mediocrity. That's the phrase of the day today.
I can't help it if you're committed to mediocrity. What else I call it? Here's how I put it. Mired in the muck of mediocrity. I can't help it. If you want to do that, it's okay. I don't pass a value judgment on that.
You're breaking my shit, George.
I'm sorry, brother. I don't place a value judgment on it. If you want to do things your way, everybody does things their way. Their life's circumstances dictate how they do things a certain way. I don't pass judgment on that. You got to do what you got to do. You got to keep the lights on. You got to do, sometimes you do have to play in a band that's a tribute to Prince or, because it makes money.
It is what
it's
it is.
It's a good business model.
Yeah, and you got to pay bills too sometimes.
All
the time.
Yeah, but I also have crafted my life and made a lot of sacrifices to not be dependent on my art to pay my bills. Mm-hmm. I crafted my life a different way And honestly, I did it to protect my art so that I don't have to fucking sell out, so that I don't have to say, this was brought to you by, Coca-Cola. I reserve the right now not to do that because I don't want Coca-Cola to tell me what I should be fucking doing.
Yeah.
Now maybe that game has changed.
No, it hasn't.
But to me, if you're selling ad time, then you need to be sensitive to the needs of the people that are giving you money. I don't want to be sensitive to the needs of the people who are giving me money. I want to just do whatever the fuck I want to do. And if you don't like that, you don't have to. Fuck yeah. That's what I'm saying. I don't care about pleasing that mentality. I don't care. Fuck it, man. I want to please me. I want to amuse me. I want to, really, see, I don't know if you get this. Do you look at rebroadcasts of what you do?
I sometimes, but it depends on the guest.
All right. Do you ever sometimes look at what you've produced as content and go, holy fuck, that's fucking great?
Yeah, sometimes I've done. Yeah,
like it surprises you.
Yeah.
How fucking great it was.
I just released this Mafia podcast that's been out for the last six weeks.
No shit.
Weeks. And that is like my most favorite project I've ever been part of.
And it's fucking great.
Yeah.
And and I refer back to that, and I also refer back to the podcast when I first discovered you that you did with the executive director of the Stanley. That was compelling podcasting.
Thanks, man.
And I went, this guy's in Utica, and he's fucking great.
Thanks, man.
And but there are times when I listen back to things that I've done, and it's like I wasn't there.
Mm-hmm. Almost like you had an out-of-body experience.
And I
know exactly what you mean.
And I go, I did that.
Mm-hmm.
I was responsible for that.
Yeah.
I wrote that. I arranged that. Holy shit! How did I do that? I don't even know how I did it.
Yeah.
That's the brass ring.
And it's almost like you do it kind of on an impulse. Like you don't even know you're doing it.
No.
And you're outside your body. Then you go back to listen to it and be like, wow, I really did do all that.
Yeah. Or it's even like task specific in my thing because you're kind of like, oh, shit, I got to write a horn chart to this fucking song.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know how to write horn charts. Well, I better learn. And then you pick up the books and you go to the YouTube videos and you figure out what the ranges of the instruments are. And you go, oh, and I don't know how to use that music writing software. I'm going to have to learn that. And you're so fucking inundated because you got a session coming up with horn players that can play. And you got to fucking be ready.
In crunch time.
It's right. And so you do it, and all that shit's happening. Right, and you make it happen, and then it takes you years to finish the track and to mix it, and then you finally, when it's all together and it's mixed, and you listen to it, and you go, "Holy fuck, I did that!" And that's why when I talk about the brass ring,
Mm-hmm.
When you're a kid, it's about outward success. Oh, I got a record deal. Oh, I'm on MTV. Oh, I sold 1 million records. Oh, I'm on tour. Oh, I'm, And I had a record deal, and I was on MTV, and Ricky Rockman was talking about how great I was, and it means nothing because I wasn't amusing myself.
Mm-hmm.
I was just there for somebody else's amusement.
You're just going along with emotions.
Going around for the ride, and it's a ride, and it was fun and everything. But when I became responsible for the actual art, that's when, the pussy didn't matter. That's the sign off.
That's it right there, brother. This has been great, man. Can we do this again sometime?
Yeah, let's do it every week. Can I be your co-host?
For sure, man.
All right.
For sure. We'll put some people in check. That's for damn sure. But no, this has been awesome. I think this is a podcast that I might go back and watch. Okay. Sometimes I don't. Because, it just depends on the mood that I'm in. But there's been some times where, I walk out of here, and there's been nights where it will keep me up at night because it's been such a good podcast. Like, you play a great show, right? You play a great show, and you can't sleep that night because you're just so high on that energy. Same thing with this. I've had a bunch of podcasts where you can't sleep at night because it's all you're thinking about.
I'm telling you, the first time I heard you and I saw you lead where shit was going to go. It wasn't you turning on the guest and just having them go. You were leading and illuminating a pathway, and it was so beautiful to watch you ploy the craft of interview. And the fact that you had a subject that knew that that's what you were doing and was dancing with you, I was just absolutely transfixed by the whole thing. And I said, this guy, he's fucking restaurant quality. He's national. You are.
Thanks, man.
I'm
I
not
appreciate
buffing your ass. I don't buff people's asses just to buff them. You really are a national quality talent in Utica, New York. And the fact that, like you're talking about the Joe Bonamassa statue, I hope people start to fucking realize what they got here.
Oh, thanks, man.
Your
comments humble me, man. Thank you very much.
Because you are. But you are. You aren't not that guy. I heard it. I sorry. I mean, maybe it's a curse. But I think that you work at it. It's obvious that you work at it, and you have a skill. It's and you can get better at it, dude.
For sure.
When I'm rehearsing with a band and I'm trying to put a band together, and I'm trying, like I said, I've been rehearsing the same set of guys since September. We are finally at the point where we're ready to record stuff. It's the end of May. It's a long time, but we record everything, and it gets disseminated, and I keep telling people, this is your opportunity to work on your craft, to listen to what you're doing. To every time that you do this is an opportunity to improve on what has transpired before.
Yes. What do they say, like 10,000 hours of work, and then you
That's
become a
the
master?
Malcolm Gladwell thing.
Right.
You know what? That's bullshit.
You think so?
Yeah, because I've got,
more than 10,000.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
millions.
like yes, I would. If it only took 10,000 hours, everybody'd be doing it. It takes way more than 10,000 hours. I think that's a gross understatement, Malcolm Gladwell.
Excellent point.
I think it's a gross understatement. When you look at guys like, I mean, there's always like the, exception to the rule. But if you look at guys at the ends of their careers, let's say, the amount of hours, it's well over 10,000 hours. If you look at, the last movies that John Huston directed, I'm sorry, that's over. He may have arrived. It may take 10,000 hours for you to get in position to make your art, but the art gets better because you're always looking at ways of improving. The real artist is looking at ways of improving it. If you look at, David Bowie didn't do the oldies circuit, stuffing himself into a jumpsuit, being Ziggy Stardust. He knew he had to ditch that. He knew he had to go on to another thing. So by the time he got to the end of his life, he had gone through these iterations. He had gone through, and he was studying Picasso, who was a realist and then was a cubist and then went, or was in his blue period and then was this and then that and then, was a tribalist and was a minimalist, and he went through all these iterations to have a life of art. You cannot be static. You cannot just mine the same thing. Honestly, I didn't think that it was going to take me this long to do this Shuffling Hungarians record. The reason why I wanted to do it is because I sort of prematurely pulled the plug on it. I wanted to have the period at the end of the sentence, but that thing is a character. He's little Georgie. He's not me, and I want to put him to bed so I can get on to the next thing. I'm ready for my next thing. That's one of the reasons that I'm having a hard time with this one, is because I'm sort of in between. I haven't put this one to bed yet, but yet I'm
moving on to the next.
And it's very difficult because now I have to sort of like put myself in the mental headspace of going like, well, what? Because Georgie is a story. He's the little zomboy. He got killed. He got rescued in a bucket of blood. He got resurrected. It's a resurrection story. But instead of like resurrecting as a Christ-like figure, he resurrects as Satan incarnate, and he kills everybody. It's a revenge story. He kills everybody in the town. They sink into the ground, and the ground is bubbling. The earth was quaking. Little zombie boy awakens, and then he laughs at them, and he says, "You fucking assholes, don't you realize that you can't kill something that has already died?" I was on
You
that.
got a cartoon here. You got like a whole comic strip going on, a sci-fi cartoon.
That was the concept. See, the Shoveling Hungarians was high concept. Nobody got it. Everybody thought they were going, oh, they're a fun band and fun to see, you know. It was all designed in the DNA. It was designed to be a cartoon. It was designed to be a comic book. It was designed to be those things. I was on the zombie tip, 30 years before The Walking Dead. I was, 30 years before True Blood. I was, this was, it's a Broadway show. I was designing it for other people to play Little Georgie, and I still am. This next iteration is going to be the third act of the Broadway show.
Love it.
What happens to Little Georgie after he does fly up into the air in the blood red sky and people are dead? And where does he go? And what does he do? And what are the picaresque adventures of this character? Well, he goes to New Orleans. It's all autobiographical. It's all, one toe in reality. He goes to New Orleans, and what happens in New Orleans? 2/3 of the record is about that. The thing I'm having a problem with is, how does it end? How do I kill him?
That remains to be seen, though, don't you think?
Well, how do I kill something that you can't kill because it's already been dead?
Yeah,
I mean, the only way that I knew how to kill it was to stop doing him. But now I've got to actually make a narrative end. And I absolutely admit I'm having a struggle with right up to this point, the songs are fucking great. The record is coming out fucking great, but I haven't got the big finish. What's the big finish for this guy? He's got to somehow.
Well, you can't force that, George. You can't. You got to let it come.
Yeah.
Because you just got to let it happen, let it fall into its place.
I am sort of thinking in terms of the fact that he has to have another transformation. He has to, okay, so he's dead. It's all about transformation. He's killed. He's in a bucket of, he's the abortion in a bucket of blood, metaphorically. And then he is resurrected from that through the dark arts. And then he becomes this, pain in the ass who fucks all the town's women and does all their drugs and drinks all their booze. And he's a fucking, he's
a degenerate.
Well, he's also Little Georgie at Stylene's Mr. Saturday Night at Stylene's Rhythm Palace, and the big fish in the small pond.
Yep.
We have to, and feeling that energy behind me of the crab in a bucket pulling me down. That's what that was. That's what that song was about. You're not going to fucking kill me. You're going to try to kill me, and you were going to be unsuccessful at it because the character was born from death. It was born from resurrection. So there's 2 resurrection stories in that character already. And then he goes to New Orleans. So now there has to be another resurrection of some kind or transformation. How does he transition out of being, the little zomboy into something better? Maybe it's bacon bread.
I love it. and giving communion.
Exactly.
I love it.
Art imitates life in this
does.
world. In my world, that's what it is.
Yep.
That's what happens. It's got to imitate life.
So true.
Oh.
Hey, man, thanks for taking the time today. This has been awesome. Really has.
Is that really the time?
Yeah, we went through 2.5 hours, brother.
All right. Well, we got to do it again.
Yeah, for sure, man. Before we get out of here, much love to EJA Moving Services, my attorney Dave Longaretta, Utica Coffee, Saranac Brewery, and Joey's over at 307 Mohawk Street. Go see my good friend Matt Grabsky. He's a freaking genius in the kitchen, man. Next time you come to town, I'm bringing to Joey's.
Okay.
He's bringing back the old school Italian East Utica dishes, but he's also mixing it up with like some of the new school cuisines as well. too.
And you know what? I definitely want to get behind the initiative of a statue of Joe Bonamassa.
Ooh, wouldn't that be great? Just even
A day.
naming a street after him would be great.
How about a day? How about a festival?
Or a weekend or any of that.
How about a Joe Bonamassa and he shows up and he gets the key to the city?
100%. And I've already talked to the mayor about this too. I have already talked to the mayor about this many times.
You know
actually.
what? That's what. Well, we gotta go.
This will be another conversation.
Yeah.
Because this I get really passionate about, and it fires me up because of the
don't get
commitment
it.
to mediocrity.
Yeah.
Here in the 315, and that's the phrase of the day. But that's the reason why I feel like he hasn't really gone anywhere. Well, I mean, he's big all over the world, but here in Utica, they don't even know who he is in this town. And it's a freaking hometown. He's got Grammy Awards, people. He's a hometown hero. We should have a street named after him. There should be a statue. Don't get me
The dude sells out the Royal Albert Hall 5 days in a row.
Plays with Clapton.
You know, like really,
this.
oh, really, and they say, oh, he doesn't play with any soul. Fuck you. You know, like, no, because he plays like a fucking Martian.
Exactly. He's not from this earth.
He plays from not like this earth.
Exactly.
Can't you appreciate that?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's the thing, that slack thing. Are you fucking kidding me? And look, see, don't get me started.
I know.
I gotta go.
It gets me. Yeah, you got anything you want to plug before we get out of here? You got like a website or anything?
A plug? What do I want to plug?
Plug website.
I want to plug. Here's what I want to plug. Get on the Bread Loop site on Facebook, like it, follow it, share it, and invite your friends. And you never know, the bread just might speak your name.
Yeah.
And you will get a loaf of my amazing bread. And remember, kids, there's only one other rule to getting that bread. One little piece to the pathway is don't be an asshole.
Boom. Thank you, George. Good hang today, brother. Thank you to everybody out there. If you're out there in Facebook land, please do us a favor and click the share button. Help spread the word of the Bread Loop and EC Radio and the Disruption Network. George, you're the man. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Z.
We're out later.
All right.